Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 32 breakdown for the huge One Piece regionals that happened in Arlington this past weekend. It was over 800 players, which it might be the largest one that's ever happened in person in the world, but definitely the largest North American event we've ever had, which is really exciting. And it was a best of one. I think it was 9 rounds of Swiss on day 1 into a top 32 cut, which was a best of 3 on day number 2 there. And then real quick before we get started on this breakdown, first, if you guys want to see some match coverage, it is on Three Swords Productions YouTube channel. They were there at the event and they're uploading videos as they are covering them, so make sure to check those out. And while you guys are out there liking and following videos, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button on this guy. It took a lot of time to put all these into the deck builder, and just, especially with the event just ending yesterday as of this video coming out, so put a lot of effort into it, a lot of coverage events on Eggman events too, if you guys haven't checked out my website, and we'll be continuing with all the other events that are going on around the world for One Piece as well. But going on into this breakdown, we did have this top 32 cut with 7 New Gates, 6 copies of Trafalgar Law, 5 Luffy's with one of them taking the event, 5 Kinemon, which we haven't honestly been seeing as many Kinemon, so really exciting there, 4 Zoras, 3 Dofis, so we do have some blue in this top 32, 1 of the Star Deck Kid, and also a Garp for like the literal first time ever in this card game, at least for North America, getting a big top at a regional. So really exciting to go over that list with you guys and all the other ones. So we're going to go over the top placing list for each one of these archetypes, starting off with our first place list. So we do have Jonathan's first place, Monkey D. Luffy. And we did have a core TCG Treasure Cup, not the weekend before this, and it was running pretty much a similar list to this one. I think this is kind of understood as a very solid build for Luffy. And honestly, I'm a big fan of Luffy, and don't get me wrong, but I'm pretty surprised how much a resurgence to Luffy has gone in the last little bit. I think part of it is because I think Law is part of the meta right now, and I do think it has some good matchups against Law, especially since you're seeing a lot of copies of like Mass Deuce, which we're seeing 4 copies. That's another 2K, which is nice. Also, Nico Robin is fantastic for you as well, and just kind of the removal you get, a lot of tempo. And since you're always like a 6K leader with this guy too, you do, I think, have a pretty good matchup into Newgate. It's just, Luffy's just kind of an all-around good character and a good kind of leader for this game. So I'm not too surprised for that, but it's just been interesting to see him kind of dip in popularity and then dip right back up in set 2 in this last time. And honestly, getting 2 big wins, 2 weekends in a row is really interesting for that as well. So I don't have much more to say. Congratulations to Jonathan for their finish on this one. And then next up, we also have Kevin Zhao with their Zoro, and Zoro's been doing pretty good as well. Obviously, it's kind of like I would say it's like the gatekeeper for the format, if nothing else, just because it's very strong. Also, I didn't say this earlier, shouts to my boy Nico for getting top 16 from Arizona, and everyone else from Arizona for their placements this weekend, but shouts to Nico on that that top 16 there. But for Kevin's list here, it's I don't know. I don't have a lot to say with this. I think Magra is like one of the better cards that I think people are finding out that you should probably be running a couple copies of this in that way. And but it's just been looking very similar in the last almost 2 months, and I guess we count another month of this meta is too. So I don't know. You guys probably already have your opinions on Zoro and what you think about it. I think it's a huge accomplishment to get second place in an 800 plus event, but I don't really have much more to say on that. Just congratulations to Kevin on that one, and just really, really great performance on there. Next up, we have our 4th place, and I didn't mention this either yet, but our top 4 was all unique leaders, which I think is at least very neat. I know that, red is the best deck, is kind of like the meme right now, but we do still have some diversity, which is kind of interesting. And I know it's, saying, oh, what flavor of red are you? Are you, the Luffy flavor, the Zoro flavor, the red-green flavor with Law? But there is some diversity there, which I think is kind of nice. But obviously, we've been seeing Trafalgar Law doing very well. It did win the PPG Treasure Cup that was going on this weekend as well, which I did cover, and you guys can check that out too. One of the kind of newer techs I know people are trying to put into this is the Dogora, which does let you play a 1-cost red from your hand on play. On active main by resting this character. So being able to use it to kind of cheat out just maybe another blocker or get something else to be able to use your Trafalgar Law effect is, I think, really powerful and effective. and being able to just be a little bit speedier with setting up your blockers is kind of nice. And then I'm also seeing just honestly a lot more rush cards in this build than I normally see. Like 4 Zoros and 3 copies of Luffy. I don't see Luffy used as much for this, and then also using the Nami for this one. So definitely an interesting kind of build too. Again, I really like Law for the fact that you have so many different ways to build this. Obviously, you have twice as much card pool of any monocolor leader, which is really interesting, and it's also just a very interesting playstyle. I'm very kind of consistent on that too. So congratulations on the top 4 finish on this one. And then our last top 4, we've entered the Edward Newgate part of this video. So we're just kind of gonna, I don't know. There's 3 different kind of builds. Chew outright. We have Moby Dick, which is this one. So this is Edward's version of this one, and this is seeing a little bit more play, I'd say, and this is a really interesting one too, because it is like, obviously the Whitebeard Pirates version of it, but your top end is literally Thatch. There's no copies of Ace, there's no copies of Newgate, and again, like, this is a really interesting copy of this build, honestly, and it was more refreshing than I've been seeing for the last little bit. You are running a lot of option cards, including like the Whitebeard Pirates, which you will be seeing probably a little bit more play into set 3. But being able to use this card to cycle for your pieces is good. And I think the biggest thing is that with the amount of cards you're running and kind of the ratios, you're going to have a harder time just having dead cards in hand, which I think is kind of the point for this one. You really don't need the 9-drop Newgate to kind of push for win, and Ace sometimes, I am a little surprised there's no Ace, but Jozu also is a rush card that you can use for the deck, and with the consistency that you're able to get, and kind of like Whitebeard Pirates in your life, which obviously doesn't hit very often, can be helpful, and I don't know, it's a really interesting build for this end, and again, where the top end ends is interesting there too. So this list. Congratulations to Edward on that one. We also do have the Straw Hat variant. So this one is from Peter in their top 8 finish, and this one I don't have a lot to say. We've been seeing a lot of it outright. This is probably like the most popular build right out the gate for the set 2 format that we had. Just the idea that you're able to gain a lot of value. I think like the little bit of add of Josie and Marco makes a lot of sense for this one. Thatch kind of sneaks his way in too, which is interesting, and just kind of how the whole deck works. Just you have a lot of tempo. You're pretty aggressive, and again, since you're a 6K body on both offense and defense, you do get that bonus. And then just a couple copies of Radical Beam. And then I don't know if this is a hybrid build. I've been naming it hybrid because it's kind of like you still have like the Straw Hat low end and 2K counter build for it, and then you also have like the Moby Dick package and everything else. So there are like a couple of like in between packages. So even though I don't like Newgate personally, I think it's a very strong deck, and it was kind of made to be very, very strong, right? There is a lot of diversity of the kind of ways you build this deck, and I think it's honestly one of the few decks that you can kind of smoke screen if you're one build or the other. So if I see Nami, I'm like, oh, they're playing more aggressively, but then if they play Moby Dick after that, I'm really confused, right? Like, it's harder to play around some of these, and being able to, again, smoke screen what kind of build you're running lets you be a little bit ambiguous, which means your opponent might make some mistakes. They might not expect Seaquake in your deck because they saw Nami turn 1, they're like, oh, they're playing aggressive. I'm not expecting that. And that can get you some free advantage from that too. So anyways, this is Michael's list there. They got top 32 with hybrid, the hybrid variant based on my own classification for it. And congratulations on their finish on that one. We have a couple more, including Kinemon, which I haven't had to cover in the last couple events, which is interesting that he's come back a little bit more full force with him. And honestly, Kinemon can be good. I'm not saying he isn't, and I'm not saying that he's a bad deck, but he is a little bit particular on how he gets to be good. And when Newgate, I think like when Straw Hat version of Newgate was more popular, he had a really, really bad matchup into that. And when so many people were playing it, I felt like he had a hard time kind of grasping some footing for the meta. But I do think it's not unheard of for him to top. You'd get a couple tops into this top 32 as well. And Odin on curve is still a really great thing. And when I think more people are playing like Trafalgar Law and also like Luffy, I think Kinemon can have a good potential matchup into Luffy, since you just have so much early board control with your Okikus and your Yamatos. If they want to try to get rid of these early, they're going to have to commit resources. And if they do get rid of these early, it just means that you can, get Odin out a little bit easier and faster too. So I do think that's something that's really beneficial of this deck. You're very, very tempo based, and if you do have like a bad turn 1 and 2, you probably just lose, which is kind of unfortunate for this deck. But I think it's still in a good spot. It's not my favorite green deck in the format, but it's definitely something that's not surprising to get a top in this too. So again, this is Diego's list here. Congratulations to Diego for their top 8 finish with the Kinemon. Next up, though, we are going to talk about my favorite green leader right now. It is the Eustace Kid. I know we're in set 2. I know he's a set 1 leader, but man, he's still very good in my mind. And we did have this list here, which is pretty similar to the list that we just saw topping. I'm pretty sure in the PPG one we've had it top pretty consistently, more consistently than Kinemon up to this event. But I do think it's just very strong in what you're able to do with it. The fact that you are able to play the 8-drop and defend it very good. Like the 8-drop can still win you a lot of games. Punk Gibson can be very control heavy, and I don't know, the leader effect is just still absurd. And in a lot of matchups, you just being able to attack twice means you can just win. Like if you get to late game with Newgate, sure, they're eventually going to have to go down to 0 life, right? And so if you're playing kind of a slow, more defensive game, if you're able to drop your Eustace Kid and just get a couple extra turn, even one extra turn, just the fact that this card hit the board, that just means that they're going to have to probably go down to 0 life and then have to defend 2 13k swings, which they can do. Don't get me wrong, but it's just something that you're able to do very well. And I think the only thing that like this deck doesn't do very good against it, I think black has a lot of removal, especially for like the 8-drop kit and everything else you're running. That can be a little bit tricky, but I don't think as many people are on Smoker or most other black decks, which means that this deck can kind of run around and not be too worried about it. But anyways, this is Emil's top 16 list, and congratulations further there. Moving right along to our top 32 list. So we have Alec Beer's top 32 Dofi, and we did have 3 Dofis get into the top 32, but they all lost in their first round of day number 2. And in my mind, I know there's kind of a toss-up if Emporia was better or Don Quixote was better for a blue deck, and I think Dofi is still the best one in my mind. Going back to it, it does have a lot of value for it. It hasn't been topping, I don't know, Blue hasn't been doing super good. It's been getting like the occasional top, not the consistent top as it has been like the last couple weeks, but it still can get a lot of value. You are a little bit RNG dependent on like top 5s and what you're able to find for that stuff, but you do get a lot of value if you're able to go later into the game. So obviously a big point of contention, does the deck run Jinbei? Yeah, it does, which I think like, two copies is fine. And we do have 2 other copies if you guys want to see them on my website too. This card can be really good, especially against Trafalgar Law, which is topping more consistently now than it did probably at the beginning of the format. Now that we kind of understand what things are, Gecko Moria 4-drop 6k is fantastic, especially if you play it on turn 3. Just means that your opponent's going to have to put a lot of resources to try to get rid of it, which is nice, and just kind of everything else. And they are running a pretty greedy top end. 2 copies of Don Quixote Doflamingo, 4 Draco Mihawks, and also 4 Love Beams. And I've said this like a lot, but I really don't like running both these at 4 apiece, just because there's going to be times where I have both of them in my hand and I have to make the decision: am I playing Mihawk this turn, or am I defending with Love Beam? Because I can't do both, right, with how Dawn works. So it can be clunky, but if it works out, it works out. And I think top 32 in an 800-person event means it worked out. And so congratulations to Alec and all of our other top 32 Dofis as well. And to finish us off with the most surprising finish, I think not only me, but for literally everyone else here, we do have Diego with their top 32 Monkey D. Garp. Garp has literally not topped an event in North America, at least regional level or Treasure Cup level, since release. Like, this is like the literal first event it's ever topped, and it just happens to be an 800+ person event, which I think is wild for what it is. But very interesting here, and you'll see, like, look at these events. We are running, 10, 13 events in this deck. We're running Impact Wave, which can be very good for, trading. Same with Gum Gum Red Hawk. Both of them pretty much doing the same thing. And, if it's the joke. If everyone's saying red's broken, I guess Monkey D. Garp has to be broken because it can use some of the good red cards, but a lot of it being on defense, and then Meteor Volcano for being able to KO something low, and then Great Eruption as well, giving just some card draw, which also can get like a card trash. I don't know. This is a really interesting build. Honestly, this is something I'm going to have to test to get some knowledge on how I feel about it. We're also running just a bunch of 2Ks and blockers, and I really don't know how this deck is supposed to go. I guess you just play Smoker, and then eventually Smoker's, Smoker with Garp means that it's going to be honestly very easy to get his double attack effect off, which I think is probably the key for this deck, being able to just have like some really tall 2Ks and then just ignoring removal outright from there. And then we're running one Newgate and one Kuzan, which is also a little bit wild. I've been running more of the Newgate when I've been testing with this deck a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit, just for the fact that it can help the survivability of something, a 4-life leader, which can have some issues there. But I don't know, this is a wild deck. I think it's crazy that this one got top 32, but really happy it did, and really happy to be able to cover it. So again, congratulations to Diego for their big achievement with this. I'd say this is a really big achievement, getting this in top 32, again, with no other tops of Garp up to this. It's definitely a deck I'm going to have to try out myself and see how I feel about it. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you made it this far in this video, you better hit that like and subscribe button, because you apparently did like the video to watch me talk about this for as long as I did. And make sure to check out my website for this event and others, and including future ones that I'm going to be covering later this week as well. And that's going to be it for me. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all next time.